Oh, Christ. Hello and welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. It is Monday night, and as always, I am Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friends
Adam and
Andy.
How are we doing, boys? Good footballing weekend. Good weekend. We're going to start with you, Adam. What have you been up to this weekend?
not a lot has to be said. I've been catching up on the football because unfortunately Wycombe Wanderers, again, for some strange reason, didn't have a fixture. But did take in a lot of Serie A this weekend and the odd FA Cup match, which I'm sure we're going to relive. But it was a good weekend of catching up with lost friends. So a few friends that I hadn't sort of spoken for a long time. I think we counted about 4 years now since we last spoke.
Wow.
So
nice.
It's good to catch up, do those things, have a just chilled out time. So it was really good. How about your weekend, Rory?
Yeah, it was on Saturday. I actually walked around Milan for once again and kind of fell in love with the city again without sounding too romantic. Every so often I walk around Milan and I'm like, oh, God damn it, I love this city. It was just really beautiful, really sunny. Walked through the park, walked through the centre, went to Chinatown. Really beautiful, just a nice Milan day. So really enjoyed that. And then Sunday did absolutely F all except flip between the channels, between all the separate games and go Serie A, FA Cup, Serie A,
Nice.
FA Cup, and then finished in Serie A, of course. But Andy, how was your weekend? I understand you're feeling a bit ropey.
Yes, it was a little bit too old for it. But yeah, I played a couple of football matches, which was good fun.
Nice.
I in one game scored a screamer, which I was very, very happy with. And the other one, I tried to do like a Ronaldo chop, fell onto the ball and looked like an idiot. So that went well. And then between sort of like roughly the afternoon period of Saturday and 4 o'clock the following morning, there were 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages consumed. And yeah, that happened. Sunday, it's fair to say, it was a write-off.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, even getting up this morning for work wasn't particularly entertaining, it's fair to say. But I'm here, I've got through it, I'm through the worst of it, so I think we're all good to crack on.
Good. Well, that's it. It's perfect. And just sorry, my phone's just gone off. I was looking down. I wasn't being rude. I've just found out that Lazovic, who's against me in Fantacalcio, scored a goal. But now Becao, who's my defender, it's gone down as his own goal. So it's actually cost me the game, that own goal, it looks like. Absolutely fuming, but that is still 1-1 as we speak. Udinese taking on Verona. It is 1-1 at half time. Nice, but we are ready to talk about some Serie A action. Oh, coming up in this show, we've got Serie A, we've got Napoli against Roma with Osimhen hitting new levels of incredible. Sassuolo, Milan at new levels of incredibly bad. We've got Monza becoming the first team who are promoted to do the double over Juventus in a Serie A season. Incredible stuff. Then, of course, in the FA Cup, we've got Wrexham coming so close. Brighton and the refereeing debacle down at the Amex. And we'll do a little bit of Manchester City Arsenal and give Andy a bit of time to talk about Casemiro. But we will see you after this break. Nice. It is Serie A time, and there's only one place to start, really. Before we get into the depression for the Milan fans, I think we best start with the game. They made us wait for it. They always do. Napoli 2, Roma 1. I'm trying to find the banner that I made, but Cholito at the death. There we go. Napoli 2, Roma 1. And the depth in Napoli's squad really makes the difference here. Adam, what were your first impressions of this game? I want to say Roma were very, very good.
Yeah, we spoke about it on Thursday that it could be a contrast in stars. It was far from it. It was actually quite an open game. And I felt I was more surprised by the approach that Roma took because I thought they would be more direct with their play. But certainly they took it to a new level. They put Zalewski on the right-hand side to almost counteract Kvaratskhelia, but also kind of attack that left-hand side because obviously Mario Rui with his pace is not going to be as agile to get back and forth. And so it was interesting to see that kind of tactic deployed. I think there's a few times where the likes of Abraham was getting frustrated with his style of running as well, because there was times where he could have released him earlier or, crossed it through. But Roma were very well worth potentially getting a point out of this match, because up until the second half, you could arguably say Roma should have had a point by the end of it. But unfortunately, it was just, as you say, it's the quality off the bench. Giovanni Simeone, who hasn't been able to play as many games as he probably would have liked to, gets the goal, and in some spectacular fashion as well, because it was that Zielinski kind of play that almost buys Smalling that kind of little bit of a dummy, and it was just that turn from Simeone that no one expected, past the goalkeeper Rui Patricio, and that's it. It was game over. I mean, there was that one last attack very much at the death where potentially I was feeling, oh, here we go, Roma are going to score from this set play, but Napoli, to their for credit even, they kept it level and they made sure that they won the match. So fair play. And that performance for me just makes me believe more so that Napoli are going to get this title. They're going to get this better.
It's starting to feel inevitable. I want to talk about Roma first a little bit, and I think what we didn't expect and what I was really surprised by, like you said, was the style that Mourinho went with. From the first 10 minutes, I've not seen Napoli look that uncomfortable in a game. I think Roma really had them right up against the wall, like could not get out their own half, just constant pressing. And it just made me think back to that Roma-Milan game when we were talking about the fact that Roma didn't press for the first 80 minutes. I was like, where the hell was this? I thought Roma were incredible. I think, like you said, they were able to just outrun Napoli almost. And I thought after Roma not making the most of that first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, Napoli have got through this now. I think they've survived the worst of it. Obviously, they went on to go 1-0. And Andy, I'm going to kind of jump to you, but Osimhen manages to make chances, no matter how high the ball is or where it's coming, as long as it's roughly in his vicinity, he's able to get a first touch and bring it down. Like, how impressed have you been with him? That goal is honestly one of the best goals I've ever seen.
It's a Van Basten kind of esque, that one. I mean, it's of that kind of quality. It really is. And I think I said on the pod last week, he has that habit of pulling away at the far post, and he did it again. And the sign of all great strikers, being able to create a half a yard of space, and he created space that wasn't there. Really, the way he took it down, took another touch to take it away from the defender and hammer it first time, is, like I said, I think that's a world-class striker, getting towards the peak of his game. And I think what the scary thing is, I think he can get even better.
Well, he's still young. He's still very young.
Yeah, he's still very, very young. And I think, again, he carries on like that. It'd be horrible news for Napoli fans, but he'll be commanding one hell of a fee come the summer, because I think somebody out there will pay it, most certainly. But yeah, and I think go to the game as well. I think we've spoken again previously about, compared to previously, the depth that Napoli have got on the bench to be able to come in and change something. Simeone hasn't played much recently, but it feels like they've got such a team spirit that even the lads that aren't playing so much or dipping in and out of games, the likes of Simeone could come on, put 100% into it. And granted, I think defending from Roma at that specific point perhaps wasn't great. I think Chris Smalling was had a bit of a slow reaction time there, to put it politely.
He's had better moments. Yeah,
It wasn't his finest moments. I think he was out of position in the first place and then didn't really go to close him down as much as he should have done. But it was a great finish. I think Mourinho obviously changed his approach. I think it was very much he went with, they've obviously got much better on the technical level. I think that's very, very clear to see. So I think he went, you know what, let's try and match them physically and hassle them. And to be fair, it really worked. I think that mix up with Meret and Kim, in the first half, with that 9 times out of 10, you do that, it probably results in a goal. And you could tell by the players' faces, they were very, very, very relieved. So
that again is one of those moments where you feel like it's going for Napoli, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because normally it wouldn't, would it?
Yeah,
normally,
it goes the wrong side of the post. And I think actually you made a good point. You brought some. I think Kim actually has been outstanding this season, but I think he had one of his dodgier nights. I feel like he had a few moments. I think in the build up to there was a Roma attack as well where he gave the ball away, and there was a few moments where I thought he just wasn't quite at his usual best. And I think there was a bit of like Roma were able to disturb that back line that have not conceded, well, the best back line in Serie A so far. They have not conceded many goals. I think Roma did a really good job of disturbing them. And I think we've talked about the depth. And one of the points is, now, obviously, Abraham came off with an injury, and I hope it's not a hamstring. It kind of looked like it might have been his hamstring. He kind of pulled up a little bit. When he came off, they were able to bring on Belotti, who didn't really do much, whereas Napoli bring off Osimhen and bring on Raspadori and Simeone, and that's the difference, right?
Belotti's been disappointing, hasn't he? Like, he's not really done much all season, I think. I remember we were talking about when he signed, like especially we take into account his previous record, you'd think that is at least a guaranteed double figures kind of player. But it hasn't.
In fairness, in his defense, he's only been like a sub. In fairness, and it's been like the odd part, like 15, 5, 10 minutes. So it's not been enough time for him to make an impact. But you are correct. You would expect a little bit more from him.
I think like off the bench, you would be expecting him to do more, definitely, but he does need to play those minutes. He played every minute for Torino. He was never on the bench. Like he was first name on the team sheet, getting all those minutes. So I think he'll be disappointed with how this season has gone as well. But I think that was kind of what stood out to me. And when Raspadori and Simeone came on, they just caused Roma all sorts of problems late in the game, just absolutely running at him. I think Raspadori could have had one as well. He had a few chances. He could have done better with the free kick as well, I think, that he had. But for Roma, they just didn't have that off the bench. You could see them tiring. You could see them kind of just dropping deeper and deeper. But I did want to say El Shaarawy having a little bit of a renaissance under Mourinho. He's like Serie A kind of just stalwart El Shaarawy and has done really well everywhere he's been. He's always just got goals. He's always just kind of fairly reliable, if not a little bit inconsistent. But I think he seems to be having a real kind of a bit of a Indian summer at Roma, and it was nice to see him get the goal. The ball in from Zalewski, Adam, as well, was an absolutely banging cross. That was an incredible cross.
It was incredible.
In at the far post to smash it in, but then at the end, Trolito was there with a beautiful finish. He only scores bangers. And I did like, there was a lot of mind games before this game and after this game. There's been a lot of mind games. Mourinho congratulating Napoli on already winning the Scudetto. Him saying that he wanted to sign Kim when he was at Tottenham. Just putting that, and you could honestly, the second Kim started having a dodgy game, I was like, oh, Mourinho knows exactly what he's doing. And then afterwards, I'm not sure if you've seen the photo, but Mourinho forcing the Roma players to take a picture.
Yes, I saw that.
Unbelievable. I don't know what kind of man management that is, but I absolutely love it. All their faces are, as you can imagine, absolutely fuming. Just lost a game in the 84th minute or whatever it is. You're not going to be ready for a photo. But an incredible game. I think Roma, if they could take those performances against other teams, they can genuinely push for second this year because it's so wide open. They just need to take that level to other teams. For Napoli, as long as they stay calm, as long as they stay sensible, they really have got this. But I think the fact, and this is my last point on it, I'll see what you think, the fact that, because at 1-1, I turned around to the missus and was like, okay, Napoli, just fucking see the game out now. Just wait. 1-1, you don't need to win it. Just don't lose it. Just sit back. But they didn't. They absolutely went for it. And Adam, I'll go for you. Do you think that is what's going to make sure that they get there? They are still absolutely pushing for this.
I think they're well drilled. If you look at how they were pretty much in that final third for majority of, especially the first half. I mean, you could argue that for the first 10 to 15 minutes, it was all Roma. And then for the majority of the rest of that match, I could only see Zielinski, Lobotka all crammed into the final third. For me, that kind of just shows you the intensity that they've got. And they're well drilled by Spalletti. And you still saw it for that last 5 to 10 minutes of that match. That's what Napoli were doing. They were just so good with the one-touch movement, the pivots they were doing. Zielinski kind of dropping the shoulder for that very move. I mean, that's kind of tells you its own story. Spalletti's not going to, let's say, be practical. He's going to go with fire and just show off that they can win in style. As he alluded to against Juventus, they have a certain way of winning like games, and it wouldn't be Napoli if they went pragmatic and down the line or just doing a hoofball to the front man. That's not their style, is it really?
No, not at all. And Andy, at this point, it does feel Napoli have just got to stay calm, right? Just keep doing what they're doing. Keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 30-point leads. It's difficult to see them losing 4 games and other teams going on a 7, 8, 9, 10 game winning run. I think the Guardian roundup summed it up perfectly. Obviously, Juve had a bit of a meltdown as a result of that 50-point deduction. We'll come on to the shit show that is AC Milan at the moment. Yes. That is soon to be coming. Inter Milan haven't quite got enough in the tank to be able to pull that off. And I think with, off the pitch distractions, I think, are harming them as much as everything else at the moment. So there's no one really capable at the moment of sticking together 7, 8, 9 wins. I think obviously had Juve did that before everybody resigned and they got a 50-point deduction. But I think because of what's going on that sort of things, I don't think they'll do that at the moment. So I think it really is, if like Napoli have to win it this season. There's no if maybe they'll win it. They have to. I think we're at that stage.
I am very, very close to looking at the price of trains down to Naples now. I'm starting to think, okay, right, let's try and look at some hostels before they all get booked up. Let's kind of try and think about it. But we will cross everything. As we're here, my girlfriend's knocking on wood to make sure that it happens because she's afraid I'm going to jinx it. But hopefully we will be down there come the end of the season. But we're going to leave Napoli-Roma there for a bit, and we're going to go to the teams that are in a bit of strife, the teams that aren't having so much fun. And we're going to start with, I think it's the slightly bigger story. So let's start with Monza take the bang bus home as Berlusconi undoubtedly delivers on his promise. They've beaten one of the big boys away. 2-0, the first team to be promoted into Serie A to do the double over Juventus. Incredible. And Juve were nowhere near it. It was just levels to this game. And there was one moment that kind of stood out to me. One of the players who absolutely ran the midfield, Ravella, right, ran rings around Rabiot and Paredes. He was given away by Juventus because he wasn't good enough, right? So not only are they seeing everything fall around them, they are watching their transfer plans buckle in front of them as well. Adam, I'll go to you first. What did you make of this game and how much did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it because it was a continuation of what we've seen from the previous weekend, especially with Juventus, the style. And, I suppose there's a few contentious offside decisions because this weekend in particular, Ferrari was only like a little bit offside. So initially he could have given Monza a lead. But even once they were 2 up, there was last 10 minutes, Szczesny has to make a big save at the time. And that shows you how bad Juventus were. There's a bit of worry about Milik as well, because I think it was 7 minutes before end of match. He had to come off. They'd already made a substitution, so they were down to 10 men as well. But it was a superb performance by Monza. In particular, I just want to call out Carlos Gusta even for that run that let Danny Motta and the composure on that guy. I did rate him from the first match that Monza played this season, and he just ran it past Szczesny and still with 2 defenders still to try and slot the ball past. he does it in style. So, I mean, Monza look a completely different side to the side that obviously at the beginning of this season were just losing games. Like under Stroppa, they just really were struggling. And I was looking at the record. So Palladino, now in 14 games, won 8 of them, drawn 3 and lost 3. And that includes Coppa Italia matches. So that's a hell of a record when you consider they did lose to Juventus in the Coppa Italia. So a bit of revenge potentially here, served well. I love the picture from the Monza social media team where they've got the bus parks above the sign with Juventus claiming to have won the title 38 times still. Brilliant. Absolutely loved that. That shit powers me.
It is quality. You could see how much the fans absolutely were loving it. Not only is the Allianz Arena or whatever it's called now absolutely dead, there's no fucker there. Or you could see was the Monza fans going absolutely mental. You could see how much it means to them. And you're right, we were making jokes at the beginning of the season, like, oh, how many of these loans are actually going to turn into buys when they get relegated and sod off. But there's a lot of players now there where you're looking and you're going, actually, there's a bit of a squad there. Pessina was a player who was great at Atalanta, great in the Euros for Italy when he came off the bench, a player that really could find a home there. I still love Patagna. I still think there's a place for him in Serie A. He definitely should have scored in this game, but I think he plays his role. And I think they're just building a good squad there. And it's a team that will quickly become very attractive for other players as well. I think if they start staying in Serie A, Berlusconi will be working his magic and Galliani, and they will be getting some big players quick if they can manage to stay up. And at the moment, it's looking good. But for Juve, Andy, now I was saying that they showed a bit of fight against Atalanta and they were ready to prove people wrong. And, you know, we're going to overcome this adversity. They're now only 10 points above the relegation zone. Do we think they could get dragged into it?
I don't think they get dragged into it. I think, unfortunately, there's a few far worse teams than Juve, even in their sort of current state at the moment. You know, I'm looking at you, Verona, Cremonese. You know, I don't think Cremonese are ever going to win a game of football ever again. So
possibly not.
Yeah, they're definitely obviously not going down. I think that would be that'll take a collapse of epic proportions, like, you know, like Fiorentina in the 90s or something. But I think they'll finish sort of top half probably. They're not too far away from that, and you know, I think that's probably where they'll finish. As to what happens going forward, that's a bit that's going to be a worry for them. I think what you're seeing at the moment is maybe mentally a few players are a little bit worried about what's going to be happening during the summer, because at the end of the day they are human, and although it's not really the players' fault that they're in the situation, when you're hearing all the rumors about further punishments, potential fire sales, the financial situation at Juve isn't great, there's going to be a few distracted players out there. I think that would make it a difference. I think, and going back to the on the pitch stuff as well, I think Juve's somewhat strange transfer policy. It's proving a little bit difficult. So we've talked about Ravello, how he's started to thrive in the Monza team, whereas, you know, he's only Alenka's only going to be able to get performances out of the likes of Rabiot and for so long. I think he's got a decent spell out of him. I mean, I suppose a positive for Juventus, if you could call it that, is Paul Pogba is back on the bench after, and he's not played a single game.
That's insane.
For Juventus since signing, and he's not really, how do I put it? He's not really the sort of player that tends to rush himself back, shall we say?
Not when things on the field aren't looking great.
No. So it'll be interesting to see what difference he'll make to that team, because my experience with Pogba when he was at Manchester United was that if a team was playing well in a really good moment, he is one hell of an asset to have. And if you're playing front foot football, he's a massive addition to the team. I do wonder how it's going to be with the atmosphere as it is and the vibes being off. Well, I think
like ideally he could be someone that would, like, with the players like Fagioli and like these young players that they're trying to bring in Miretti, that he can be a player that kind of brings them through. And I think despite what happened at United, a lot of the younger players at United do speak quite highly of Paul Pogba and do say that he had a positive influence on them. And maybe they're going like, look, if you can try and just get these players first team ready and kind of coach them through games, I think he could be quite useful. But I think that Juve squad is so, I think you're right with Vlahovic has gone there for Champions League football. That's why he went there, to win the Champions League.
He won't be there.
No, he is gone in the summer. He is gone in the summer. I think there's a lot of players. Paredes, even though he's only just joined, probably has got one foot out the door going, if you guys aren't in the Champions League, I'm off. I think you're seeing a lot of them kind of looking like that. And we kind of talked about it before, the 06 team, when they got relegated, they had quite a lot of like characters who were loyal to Juventus. I know they've not been relegated, but even at this point, the players aren't even that loyal to stick around with them just not being in the Champions League. So I think we're going to see a big summer of change. And as you said, they need to recoup some of the financial loss that they're going to take, because they were already up the fucking up shit creek financially, and now they're really going to be in trouble. But I think Allegri as well is safe in the job because they can't afford to sack him. So it's just this real big mess down at Juve, which is a shame, I suppose. And today, well, it looks like, well, no, he has. McKennie has left. Now, I think McKennie got a really hard time from the Juve fans, and we've kind of slagged him out a few times and been like, man, he has some awful performances. But I think he's also one of the players who shows a bit of fight and does show signs of, like, he scores more goals than you think. I don't know who's going to replace him. Like, do you think he'll be a big miss, Adam? I don't know who's going to come in and take his spot.
Yeah, I think he's one that's divided opinion, definitely. I think he's one that probably isn't at the level that Juve fans are kind of keen to get in terms of like as a signing at the time. I think obviously came through with this reputation of being this wonder kid that came through at Schalke and not really living up to the bill in terms of after his injury. He had that kind of little bit of a breakthrough at the beginning, but they didn't know where to play him best. If you remember, it was behind the front two, then it was on the wings, and then he got that injury. And I think ever since then, it's kind of like he's just been utilized where they can. You're right. He's obviously a player that gives a lot of determination, grit. And in certain circumstances, I think he has added a bit of quality during the course of this season. But probably they aspire to get someone else with better quality. I mean, this is Juventus. They don't seem to care really too much about the players that they've got at the disposal right now. I think it's the right move for McKennie in terms of his career. I think that's a really good move. Shrewd for him to experience a different league. And I think he'll add a lot of quality to Leeds. But yeah, I think his time at Juventus was definitely up. If it wasn't in this window, certainly by the summer, he would have been sold off anyway. And I think for Juventus, it makes perfect financial sense. They need to recoup some money ultimately. And I think in the other way, you could see maybe more of the younger players being given a shot now. And I think that's probably the philosophy that Juventus are going to have to take, especially as you allude to. Di Maria was only signed on a 12-month contract, if I remember rightly. So he'll be off in this window coming up this season. I think they're going to struggle to attract the talents that they've been used to as well. So I think it's going to be a few years of consolidation, maybe more extreme than what maybe Man United had to go through in that respect. I think they are seriously going to suffer over the next few years. And, you know, Juventus fans are going to be bitter for even longer.
Yeah, it's not. This noise isn't going anywhere, I don't think. Not until Napoli and Milan have been punished, then the conspiracy theories will not die until that happens. But I do have to very quickly say, the midfield for the USA of McKennie, Adams, and Musa was very, very good midfield. So I think Leeds have been very clever there and gone, okay, McKennie and Adams already play well together. I think that could be a
and they've already got Aronson who plays in attacking midfield.
Yes,
they have got a bit of a
just need Josie out the door now.
The Americans just love invading. That's what they do.
Yeah, they're going to deliver some freedom to the Premier League, and hopefully freedom from relegation.
We can hope, but we do need to move on elsewhere. And talking about teams in a torrid time, well, Tatarusanu, again, the man never far away from the headlines when Milan are playing. Has a team missed a goalkeeper more ever than Milan are missing Mike Maignan at the minute? Sassuolo make Milan look like a pub side on hanging out their asses like Andy at the minute, as they score 5 more than they managed to score in their previous 8 games. Their previous 8 games. Against, and I think most of it was in the first half. It was 3-1 by halftime, right?
3-1 by halftime, yeah.
Absolutely shocking stuff from Milan. I cannot tell you how
bad
it
was always going to be Sassuolo, though, wasn't it? That would beat them because they were the
leakiest defense before this game.
But
yes,
Milan, Sassuolo are a bogey team for AC
course,
Milan, though. You know, pretty much every season they seem to get a result. But I thought Berardi was really impressive.
Oh, what a player!
Fratesi
I mean,
as well.
I've always been a big fan of Berardi, to be honest. Like coming through his early days at Sassuolo and even, you know, playing for Italy, I think he's a great player. Would love to have seen, you know, maybe at a slightly higher level than Sassuolo, with all respect to them. But he was absolutely on fire.
He gave Teo an absolute nightmare of a game. And I think there was a lot going on here, right? I think there was this whole mental psychodrama being played out by the Milan players who had zero fuse. It was such a little, like, feisty little niggly game where they were just proper getting at each other. The Sassuolo players knew they could get into their heads. I'm honestly shocked nobody was sent off. But I think I just need to talk about, like, on Football Manager, one of the first things I do is buy a good goalkeeper. So, like, if you've got a good goalkeeper, you can forgive a shit defense if you've got a decent goalkeeper. Now, my God, they need Mike Maignan back. Like, I've not seen a team miss. This is exactly the same defense as last year, which was the best defense in Serie A, minus Maignan. And look at what is happening. Sassuolo just walked through that team. It was... Honestly, I was like laughing along as it happened. I thought this cannot get any worse for Milan. And it continued to. Pioli looked like he was having, like, he did not know where to look, where to stand, what to do. He was just in shock on the line. Like, Adam, I'll go first to you again. Like, what did you make of this game? We'll talk about Sassuolo, I suppose, first, and then Milan.
Yeah. I'm just going to steal James Horncastle analogy for this match. Milan's, like, defense couldn't have been more open than pigeons at Piazza Duomo. It was that open. It was that incredible. Sassuolo were incredible, as you said. Fratesi had his little beef with Teo. I don't know if you saw
Instagram
on Instagram
as well.
The stories are there. The stories, the pictures, and just that picture of him looking down at Teo when he's on the floor. Beautiful. But yeah, Fratesi looks so mature now. Like, I think if you look back 18 months ago, even like 6 months, if we draw it back, he was rumored to be going to Roma, but they decided he wasn't quite ready then. He's definitely matured in terms of his performances, driving runs. He created a lot. And as Andy alluded to rightly, Berardi, these are the kind of games, you know, you kind of wonder if he was in a better team. And that's no disrespect to Sassuolo, because they are incredible with the resources they've got. But ultimately, I mean, Sassuolo are one of those mythical teams, you know, these teams that shouldn't by rights be challenging against the likes of Milan, but they made them look so ordinary. I mean, just the way they play is just fantastic on the eye, and they just dragged it out of Milan. But in terms of Milan, we spoke about it on Thursday, they are shot of any confidence. And the big things that I think rightly are being called out on is Pioli not giving certain players a chance now in this team. So Yassin Adli is the player that's been tipped for a long time, not even given like a few minutes in this game. You know, you see Calabria with hands up to the crowd, you know, saying he's sorry. But ultimately, it's just the whole team from front to back is just so porous when they don't have the ball. They just invite the pressure. And, you know, De Ketelaere is another player that we've spoken about. He hasn't really lit this up in terms of his breakout season so far at Milan.
They spent a lot of money on him as well.
The majority of their money on him, yeah.
28 million on him. Huge amounts.
It's like, if you're going to spend £28 million in Italy and you're not Juve, you need to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say it hasn't as well. I think Gabbia at centre-back is just not working either. No. I think, you know, Simon Kjaer, all right, he's had his injury problems, but he might have been able to potentially calm that situation down. And I saw someone on Twitter as well, right? You make a good point about Salamakers, who's got one.
I was sticking up for him on Thursday as well.
And I told you he's absolutely shocking. He's absolutely shocking.
You've got Rafael Leao, who is probably their best player, but he, you know, I think he's that classic. Feels like his head's been turned a little bit.
Well, he didn't even start this game. Like, Pioli's selection was a bit mad. He drops Benacer and brings in Krunic, and then he drops Leao and starts Rebic. And I saw a lot of like Milan fans going, Pioli, you need a win, man. Why are you like, you need a win, right? Like, you can't drop your like franchise player, as they say in America, like lay out when the game that you need. And then the like the humiliation of a step back then when you have to bring him on at half time because it's all gone to shit. It just doesn't give off the right vibes of like, okay, I tried that, but you're right, you are our best player. Can you save me, please? Like, and then Leao at that point was unable to do anything. I thought
the game's gone.
The team selection was absolutely mad. And I think it would just scream to someone who was like, I need to just try something new. It doesn't matter what it is, just something new.
I mean, you can sort of understand the logic of it. You know, if you're in a bad run, and there's that saying, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's a definition of insanity. So you can understand the logic of just him waking up one morning going, right, okay, I'm going to try something a bit different. But unfortunately, it just is backfired massively. And they conceded a lot of goals. And I mean, I'm not sure how long Mike Mannion's out for, but it'd be interesting to see if Pioli comes through this period.
I don't think he's due back anytime soon. I should really check when he's due, but I think there's no sign of him really coming back.
He's at least a month away. He's a month away is the latest. But as Andy alluded to, 18 goals is how many goals they conceded last season. They're 2 away from matching that already. It is looking desperate. And on that point, Tomori, he's been poor this season as well. Absolutely shocking. He's not been the same Tomori from last season. So lots got to be done at Milan. Like you predicted, 3 p.m. we might see Pioli being sacked. It's not happened just yet, but they need some drastic changes, I think.
This weekend could be the one because they have the Milan derby coming up and they just got spanked 3-0 out in Saudi Arabia. So this is one that he
needs
possibly the biggest game of his Milan career so far, this one, because it could cost him his job. But all of this has left us with an incredibly tight 2nd to 6th place. We have Inter 2nd with 40 points, then Lazio in 3rd, Atalanta on 4th, and Milan on 5th, all on 38 points, and Roma in 6th on 37 points. So it is literally anybody's to grab. Whoever can put a run of form together can get themselves that 2nd spot. I think Inter could starting to show a little bit of signs. Lautaro getting 2. Good to see him kind of back in form, kind of. 2 goals, won the game for Inter. Anything else to say about the Inter game? I'm not sure, really. I watched it, but it was against Cremonese. They managed to go 1-0 down. That was impressive.
Yeah, I think the only thing you'd say is Inter created lots of chances in this match. But Inter's so unpredictable. Some weeks they look superb. Next, they just throw out against the likes of Empoli, for example. And they are just terrible. But it doesn't help that this Milan Skriniar news has obviously kind of really riled up a bit of tension there. Obviously, this morning we saw Harry Maguire linked with a move there. Also, prior to that, there was Rodrigo Bacao from Udinese, which a lot of Inter Milan fans flipped. If you saw in Twitter, they were like, this is our future. Look at it. Rodrigo Bacao,
just scored an own goal.
Acerbi and Bastoni. That's what they were saying is our future. But some were also speculating the likes of Chris Smalling. He's rejected a contract renewal at Roma. Free transfer in the summer looks ideal for Inter's purse strings, right?
It seems such an Inter signing. Inter signing. It's done already. It is absolutely done already. But they do get a 2-1 win against Cremonese. As I said, they did manage to go 1-0 down, which is impressive against Cremonese. Elsewhere, I did want to very quickly shout out my guy, Razvan Marin, as he gets a goal again this weekend, scoring against Torino. He's absolutely tearing it up for Empoli. You've got to watch this guy. Beautiful player and another player who only scores bangers. All of his goals are absolute rockets. So a player to definitely keep an eye on. I'll very quickly go through the other results. Lazio drew 1-1 with Fiorentina, which actually was a very entertaining game. Atalanta beat Sampdoria 2-0. Lookman is now 2nd in the Capocannoniere charts, which I don't think many people saw coming. And we have Lecce lost to Salernitana 2-1 in the first game of the season. Has my camera gone off?
It has, yes.
Oh God, that's the terrible camera. Adam, take over while I figure this out.
Yes, I have to say, I thought there was going to be a goal fest at Atalanta, but 2 goals in the match. Superb goal taken by Adamola Lookman as well. But to their credit, Sampdoria did give a bit of fight, just lacking that quality as per usual. I lost where you were in terms of the other games, but one that I will call out in terms of goals was Oslini, even sorry, for Bologna against Spezia. Dragovski was the only man that was keeping Spezia in this match. Spezia looked like a side that could go down. Do I
They're
dare
getting
say
dragged.
it?
They are getting dragged into
this.
it.
Yeah, they don't look like they're offering much. So unless they do some transfer business in this window, which is due to finish at 11 o'clock, isn't it, tomorrow evening? That should be fascinating. But I wanted to float out the 2 big ones for you, Rory. So it looks like Traore from Sassuolo has been confirmed to Bournemouth. Nicola Schurrer has just confirmed that 25 million. That's a really good bit of business.
That is
and
a
then
very good signing.
We mock this guy, but Krzysztof Piątek is linked with a move to Fiorentina. Believe it or not, Salernitana have said they're more than welcome to have him.
Really? Really?
Yeah. So
Damn.
and on cue, Andy drops out.
Every
Beautiful.
time.
So this
Every
show
time.
is running smoothly as per usual.
Nice. Honestly, it's seamless. It is seamless. Yeah, down at the bottom, we have Verona, as I said, still 1-1. They're now 5 points off Spezia, but they've lost 2 in a row now. And a lot of those teams in absolutely terrible form. So it could be tighter than we thought down there. But guys, it's time to leave Serie A, and we do need to go to the not Premier League, to the FA Cup. And we are going to go there right after this. It's FA Cup time, and I think we're going to start down at the Amex. I think it was the most entertaining game. There's quite a few, some entertaining games in this round, but this refereeing performance really, really, really confused me. It's where I have to start with this game. I'm sorry, but I feel like Liverpool could have had 3 red cards, and none of them, as far as I could see, only Robertson. I don't know why that keeps happening, guys. Only Robertson got a booking. Canate, did he get a yellow for that?
He should have got a red card, definitely.
It was true on goal, and it was an arm across the back of the head. I don't know how that's not a red card. Then there was the Robertson one. Well, that was the last one, the Robertson one, which he got a booking for. That was a reckless tackle. But the Fabinho one, now I'm not just saying this because of this shirt behind me, but Evan Ferguson is the future of Irish football, and I will die for that man to stay fit. What the hell was Fabinho doing there? And what the hell was VAR doing? Fabinho, you can see by his face, he was ready to walk.
He knew that. I think if that was a Premier League match, he'd be going. I think he knew that was happening. And I don't know whether the referee just didn't see it at the right angle, but he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, and the stud marks were very evident as well. I don't get it. But there was various other refereeing decisions this weekend that were a bit, contentious, shall we say? And I don't work it out. I can't work it out. But let's talk about the magic of Matoma as well.
We do need to talk about Matoma just very quickly. Ferguson walked out of the stadium on crutches, so we all really, 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 really hope it's not too serious, because that is an absolutely shocking tackle. But yeah, Matoma. Oh my God, this guy. Now, Brighton, we need to just. I think I saw it, such a good tweet. I wish I could credit the guy. He said Brighton are like the sugar babes. It doesn't matter how many members you replace. They just keep releasing bangers. Just keep releasing bangers. And they've banned Caicedo from the training ground until Wednesday because he's meant to be coming to Arsenal. Please, they banned him, and no one gives a shit. They just crack on. De Zerbi again takes the game to Liverpool. Again outplays them for large parts. And Matoma, I don't know how much this guy's going to go for. Like, I'm sorry, Brighton fans. All we do is talk about when your players are going to move on, but that's very much your model.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how incredible he is for you. But this guy, he is the best dribbler in the Premier League, I think, by a distance. Like, peak Salah, I would say, was like just a bit more clinical. But Matoma, the way he can just go past players and just give right backs and full backs absolute nightmares. It's just incredible, this guy. And what he's doing now is adding a cutting edge. And this goal is absolutely beautiful. The way chest, knee, and then volley, right?
Yeah,
just
pretty much. He was juggling
it.
It like an Osimhen goal, if you can imagine it, but at a more skillful level, shall we say?
Yeah.
Even though Osimhen's effort was very skillful in itself, it was more, I think, strength and power of Osimhen. Whereas here, you had the composure. He dinks it, that little dink in terms of he keeps it on his knee, kind of buys him a bit of a dummy, and he blasts it past Alisson Becker into the goal. Roof of the net.
Like the way he keeps it up and then flicks it with the same foot. It's unbelievable. Like you'd expect him to flick it up and then come across it, but he just and it's just in the net. He made Joe Gomez look absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what it is with Liverpool defenders, but they love turning their back on the ball at the minute. Andy's back, all right, mate. But yes, Matoma, loving, what a guy, unbelievable. Brighton, how far can De Zerbi take them? Like, Andy, where do you think, like, in the table, they're absolutely flying. They're up to 6th or 7th, I want to say. I've not got a table in front of me. How far can he take them? Could they get a cup run together?
Cup run, absolutely. I think they've shown this season that on their day they could take on absolutely anybody. They've given Liverpool a right old going over this season already in the league games they've played, and so in the FA Cup, they ransacked Manchester United at the start of the season, right at the end of the last one as well. But it feels like De Zerbi's taken them on an extra level, has given them a bit more penetration, because I think under Graham Potter, a bit like you see at Chelsea, they could be a little bit blunt sometimes. They don't score enough goals, even if the approach play is good. And I think he's added a bit more directness and dynamism to it. And obviously Matoma, I know you're just talking about as a came back on, but that touch to take it away, that second touch to take it away from Gomez, honestly one of the best touches I've seen. It was just absolute filth.
It was incredible. It was one of those moments at home. It got me off the sofa. I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what's he just done?"
I'll be surprised if Ted Bowley's like offering £100 million for him tomorrow.
Warming up. He's warming up. Yeah. He's just released another bank account. He's moving things around. We'll see how he does it. But for Liverpool, they're in all sorts of trouble. Klopp has confirmed that nobody else is coming in during the transfer window. They're definitely putting all their eggs in the Jude Bellingham in the summer basket.
That's a bold basket.
It is a bold basket when Real Madrid are interested. Yeah.
And also it's unlikely, given current for that Liverpool will be in the Champions League next season. Like,
it does seem a bit foolish to me.
Unless Jude Bellingham's a die-hard Liverpool fan, which I've definitely missed it if he is. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's a Birmingham
All I know
City
is his dad's a die-hard Liverpool fans, but that could be just hearsay and rubbish, basically.
But they all seem really confident that they're going to get him, don't they? Like most Liverpool fans I see on Twitter seem to think it's a done deal, and I don't quite understand where it's come from.
Can't see that.
No, I think if this transfer window has taught me anything, it's to not assume a deal is done until Fabrizio Romano tweets, "Here we go," because you never, ever, ever know. Yeah. But I think, look, my dad wanted me to do lots of things. I've done very few things my dad wanted me to do. So I'm not sure how much of a bearing he'll have on Jude's career. But I honestly think Liverpool could get him. I think there's a reason why they must feel fairly confident if the club is like, right, we're not going to spend now. We'll just get through this season. They must be fairly confident they're getting him. Otherwise, it is idiocy. But they have to get through the rest of the season first. I think now we've talked about their midfield forever and how it's just so creaking and it's easy to walk through now. The defense seems miles off where it ever was. What are the signs of hope? I think Harvey Elliott has been fairly decent this season. I like this Bajcetic. He looks pretty decent. What can Liverpool kind of focus on for the rest of the season now? I'm going to go to you, Adam, because they're out of the FA Cup, out of the Carabao Cup. They've got a pretty rough draw in the Champions League from what I can remember. I think they've got Real Madrid, haven't they? What can Liverpool be focusing on for the rest of the season now?
I think it's consolidation, really, just try and finish as high up the table as they can. The problem I find, as Andy alludes to, they need more than one player. and you kind of putting your basket into Jude Bellingham as being your saviour isn't going to be enough. And much like Darwin Núñez was supposed to be the saviour in terms of revolutionising that kind of front line, I think they got the policy completely wrong once they sold off Sadio Mane instead of maybe Mo Salah, who I don't think has performed as well since that kind of new contract's been given to him. I think they need to change it up. I can't see Klopp kind of diving into that youth academy and bringing up a few of the youngsters to play alongside this kind of 11 at the moment. And I think Jamie Carragher kind of alluded to it, is that you've got really the kind of men that you expect to do the running, the likes of Jordan Henderson, Milner, for example. Their legs aren't at the same levels anymore. It's all right if you have Bellingham in that midfield, but he's there to kind of go up. He needs to rely on other people to do the job. Now, Henderson might have a season or two left at best, but again, he's going to be exposed when there's, teams with better kind of stamina and levels as well as pace. And then you look at defensively, they've been so poor. I mean, they were so lucky in that Chelsea game that goal that was ruled off for offside wasn't given against them, because I think on another day that gets given against them and they struggle for the whole majority of the match.
They looked ropey against Brighton. I think Konate could have got himself sent off.
Yeah, the red cards in this game that there should have been was an absolute disgrace. But I think Brighton were able to expose them every single attack, and we've talked about it. It feels like a trend for this season, or maybe we're just noticing it. Like teams that are able to be dangerous when they attack every time they attack, and teams that are just blunt. And Brighton were just dangerous every time they got forward. Liverpool definitely didn't feel like that. And I kind of, to go back kind of briefly to what we were saying before about Brighton as well. In the past, we're under Graham Potter, it was like, Brighton, the XG gods hate them. Like they'd have an XG of 9 and then not score one. But now it feels like they're outperforming their XG almost. They're just scoring every single time. We said it on Thursday that this was going to be like an upset, if you could call it an upset, because I'm not sure if it is. But I am conscious of time. We do need to move on from the Amex, and we need to go all the way down or up even to North Wales as Wrexham go so close. It was the Ryan Reynolds show a bit on BBC, right? I think you couldn't get away from the Hollywood story. I quite like him. He's very charming. But how did we feel about Wrexham and this game, Andy? Proper FA Cup banger. What is going on with my webcam? Right. Proper FA Cup classic, right? Jesus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was proper end-to-end, last-minute drama, great goals, everything that you really want. And I think when Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought the club, this was the kind of game that they were, banking on. This was the kind of game that they're dreaming on. I think there seems to be a little bit of jealousy or skepticism towards Wrexham at the moment, but they get, all right, they've obviously had the investment, which clubs at National League level could only dream of, but they get 10,000. They get an average like 10,000 gates. They've gone bust on a few occasions at Wrexham. In 2011, they go close to going to administration. So times like this, not so long ago for Wrexham, were a million miles away, and I think they've earned every minute of it. And I think especially if your Sheffield United side trying to push towards the playoff side of things or have designs on doing so, I think Wrexham have got a very good chance in the away leg. And I think, obviously with Paul Mullin, he's a striker well above the level that they're playing at. Well above.
Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, he'd probably look all right at Sheffield. He'd playing for Sheffield United. He's that good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to see the race course, which is one of the oldest international stadiums out there, and the fact they could be redeveloping it as well, I think. What makes them different to other club owners is that they've really bought into what Wrexham is about as a city and what the people have gone through and things like that. And I remember watching their documentary, and one of the things that they said was as part of their job as actors, they're storytellers. And that's kind of what they've done, because they've got a lot of fans over in America. They've got ESPN broadcasting their games. They've been able to do a lot of things that MLS clubs can't do, which is tell a really authentic story going back hundreds of years. And I think that's why people are sort of buying into what Wrexham are doing. So I think, and obviously, on the pitch, I think that's showing. I think they're a bit unlucky to concede the last minute goal, but that's what the FA Cup is about. That's the sort of ties we love to see.
It was incredible, like 6 goals, unbelievable. Really, really enjoyed it. The game did kind of turn on a very big decision that looked a bit mad to me. So, Adam, the sending off, what could you make of it? I kind of was a little bit confused. If that's a red card, then every game is going to be abandoned and forfeited at 3-0, right?
So it was the centre-back Ben Tozer who insinuated that Jebison, the Sheffield United player, had kind of tried to go in with the arm. But as you allude to, there was very little in it because Tozer was also giving it, to be fair, from the scenes that I could see anyway, from that clip, from the very short clip. And I see that very much happening in lower leagues anyway. So it was basically, he was buying that foul. If he'd gone down like a sack of spuds, then potentially you could kind of say, oh, maybe it was clipped or something like that. But he didn't. So yeah, I think it was a bit fortunate perhaps for Wrexham to be in a position where they were against 10 men, but fair play to Sheffield United. They still kind of stayed to their philosophy, which Paul Heckingbottom has kind of instilled. You can see like the players that they had on show, and Dyche, when he came on, looks incredible, and you can see why there's a lot of hype around him at the moment. But also just they seemed to set out because they knew that it was going to be a tough day. And they knew they could be a shock there. They could be the ones that would be kind of deemed as the killers, basically themselves, being on the end of a killing from Wrexham. But yeah, Wrexham is just that experience. I think there's certain players that haven't been able or haven't been exposed to that kind of level. They've been used to conference level, it has to be said. And something about the pitch, we have to say the pitch didn't look too great on occasions. So I know that's been, if you look at the documentary, that's something of a bedbug for the likes of Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. But yeah, fair play to Wrexham. I personally, I'm not against their kind of spending philosophy. Lots of teams do it. Salford City obviously did it beforehand. You've got the likes of, say, especially for that title race in the conference as well. So you've got the likes of them, Chesterfield, Notts County in that mix. Notts County desperately need to go up. They're 18 million in depth as well at the moment. So huge depths for a club in the
National
conference,
League,
national level.
League.
Yeah,
I mean, Notts
That's
County's been an
insane.
absolute shambles for years, but
Yeah.
I think although people write a caution of it, I think with Wrexham they are a very, very well supported club. I think if you
They
look at
always have been. Yeah.
I think they get a lot through their gates, record season ticket sales. They've got with the documentary that they've got with Disney Plus, they're going to have a lot more coming in than the likes of Notts County and with Salford City. They're a tiny club, and if the owners, I like to think they wouldn't, given who they are, but let's say they did decide to walk away and go, right, the money's not there, they would go bust overnight. I think there's a bit of a difference. I think what's going on at Wrexham is sustainable. They're building they're expanding the stadium to have more capacity, get more fans, and I think it feels like there's more of a business vision behind what we're doing as well as the rest of it.
It does feel much more sustainable than most kind of like millionaire owners who come in. It does feel like they're taking a sustainable idea to it, which is great to see. I just wish they'd done it at Crewe Alexandra rather than Wrexham. It would have been quite nice. But we do need to move on from Wrexham. They are going to have a replay. I did very quickly want to say as well, Palmer came so close to an absolute banger of a goal as it crashed off the crossbar. I really, really, really wanted that to go in. That was a hell of a hit. But we do need to go to the Etihad, and it all fell apart. Ake makes the difference as he strokes it into the far corner.
I never thought I'd read that sentence.
I know. Honestly, I was like, how, why, where did this come from? As Man City beat Arsenal's B team 1-0, I was quite happy with that. I thought last year we went away to the Etihad and held 5 and didn't reply with our first 11. I thought this performance was much better, fine margins, a little bit gutted to be out, but nothing to worry about. The only thing I did want to very quickly say, Sambi Lokonga is not having a very good time at Arsenal. It's apparent that he needs, what I would do personally is send him down on loan to Burnley. Vincent Kompany knows him. He plays great football. He's able to coach him, and I would say, look, have a year on loan in the Championship, get a bit of experience, get a coach who's going to get you to believe in yourself again and give you that attention. I feel like very rarely you see the Arsenal players chewing each other out on the field, but Odegaard did turn around to him and be like, you were supposed to be there, and it led to the goal. So I did want to, but I also, on that same hand, want to say Arsenal fans, he's a 21-year-old kid. Some of the shit I've seen sent to him on Twitter is fucking disgusting. Grow up. Like, the guy had a bad day. Leave it. It's not going to help him get any better. But for City, they get through 1-0. We were that close. We were so close. I thought it was a really, as we said on Thursday, it was a proper chess match. It was two teams trying to figure each other out and be like, right, who's going to go first? Who's going to blink? Who's going to blink? And unfortunately, we blinked. But City today, Cancelo, gone. It's a bit of a bombshell. What do we make of that? Seems a bit mad. That's all blown up in 48 hours.
I did not have that on the bingo card
No,
at all. Like,
not. Yeah.
and you could tell by the sort of the comments and stuff, nobody seemed to expect that coming. And I know it's Forbes, it's a World Cup, has been a bit ropey, but even so, you thought he'd have enough credit in the bank to ride out the rough spell. Add to that, there's not really any depth. And the fact is, any depth at left back.
No,
because one of them's never coming back ever again.
Occupied, let's just say.
We'll go with that. The other ones are makeshift options, like Ake occasionally rocks up at left back every now and then, but he's the only proper specialist wing back, which is integral to system. It's integral to Pep's system. So you can only think there's been a falling out somewhere.
Well, I read there's been a bust up on the training ground because Cancelo didn't start the game against Arsenal, and he was arguing about the fact that he didn't start against Arsenal. I saw it on Twitter. I saw an article written about it. Who knows? But we do know that Guardiola does have a bit of an issue with man management. Like Adam, he's not the first player he's fallen out with.
No, he's fallen out with a number of players. Whether you think back to Barcelona days, Zlatan was a big name that he fell out with, and he was the man that he brought him in, especially to kind of beef up that Barcelona team. If you look in terms of obviously Bayern Munich, there was a bit of uncertainty around Lewandowski's future at the time, despite the fact that he scored. If you remember, he came off the bench one time against Wolfsburg and scored a hat-trick within 10 minutes. And that kind of calmed itself down after that moment.
All of a sudden, I don't mind him that much.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of beef head between them two. And then if you think before even this incident at Man City, Leroy Sané, another player that obviously towards the end of his time, it looks like he was frozen out. Don't know why. Maybe there was an attitude aspect again, but we won't know until an autobiography comes out. I think that's the only time we'll ever find out, and that I'd love to read. Definitely.
And speaking of which, autobiographies, just read the first page of Zlatan's autobiography, and you'll hear exactly what he thinks of Pep Guardiola, because he goes flying into him. But also, Leroy Sané has a tattoo of himself on his back scoring a goal. Anyone like that, I wouldn't really want anywhere near my club. I'm kind of on Pep's side with that one. But Man City make it through. An interesting kind of psychological test for the fact we've still got to play them 2 more times. And, first 11 at the Emirates, I'd feel fairly confident, touch wood. Andy, we are going to go to United. Casemiro scores 2 against the Royals, as you put your old player, I'm not going to say legend, he's not a United legend, is he? But your old player, Paul Ince, out. What did you make of the United performance? And Casemiro getting 2?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, like, if you call it for what it is, United should be beating Reading every single day of the week, they're mid-table of the Championship. But I think what we're seeing is that Ten Hag is serious about trying to win something. He put in a much, much stronger squad in terms of a lineup that I was expecting, to be fair. It was more or less the full 11, I think, with a couple of exceptions with Harry Maguire about as well. But Casemiro, I think at Real Madrid, I think his job was just to get the ball, pass it to Toni Kroos, and just let everyone else get on with it, basically. Whereas I think United, he's been relied on a little bit more from a creative point of view. And all right, you have to factor in the fact he's against Reading, but he's done it in the Premier League as well. He's very, very good player at breaking between the lines, getting first time passes. That transition from defence into attack, he seemed to manage very, very well. Obviously, we spoke about how much he was missed against Arsenal, and yeah, he seems to have found a little bit of a goal scoring touch in recent weeks as well. I think his first goal was a proper number 9 finish that was the keeper, and then the second goal was a little bit fortunate, but you could tell he's confident because he went and had a go. It was one of those games though where I did forget that Andy Carroll exists, and I wish he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's still about.
He's still about, but whilst we're on a couple of gripes with Andy Carroll. Number one, he's a striker wearing the fucking number 2 shirt, which is just frankly abysmal. And Reading as a football club deserve to be dissolved for just doing that.
It is unacceptable.
The only time I remember a more ridiculous shirt numbering was back with Chelsea, had a centre back called Khalid Bilaruz who wore the number 9.
Yeah,
he was like a centre back for them. He was fucking pony.
He was. He was a bad one. He was a bad one.
Just to add to it, and I thought, Steve Sidwell wearing a number 7 shirt because it's Steve Sidwell. Just a few things like that. You sort of point out and go, it's wrong. But what was utterly wrong was Andy Carroll going on a rampage unchecked. He eventually got himself sent off, but obviously Christian Eriksen's picked up a really nasty injury, which, a bit like with Fabinho's challenge, was from behind. No attempt, barely any attempt to get the ball, if any at all. That absolutely crocked him. And he seemed, the challenge he got sent off for flying into Casemiro. And I think he was a benefit of some very lenient refereeing. And I think it frustrates me is that they could spend 5 or 6 minutes analysing whether a goal should be a goal because someone's hair is offside. But, a 2-footed challenge or a very dangerous challenge straight into the back of somebody, they'll go, move on. And I think
on-field decision.
All right, if you give the odds, if you're going to put that amount of dedication to try to disallow a goal, then at least use VAR for what the clear benefit of VAR should be. Is if someone commits a dirty foul that the referee's misinterpreted, they should be going to the referee going, look, mate, you need to have a look at this because I think that's a red. But apparently Howard Webb, who's sort of in charge of the referees at the moment, is trying to get VAR to stay out of it more, where
I think, whatever way he decides to take it, there's going to be negative aspects to it. But this weekend has highlighted the fact that maybe we need to look at tackles like that. Maybe we need to be able to turn yellow cards into red cards, because I feel like once a ref gives a yellow, they can't change it, but if he gives a red, they can.
Yeah, because they're saying that the
rule,
referee has seen it, they're giving punishment, so therefore it's not an obvious mistake. But
maybe there needs to be a change there.
But with the Liverpool game as well, like there was a couple of challenges where you're thinking that should be just straight reds.
Like, without a doubt. But that is the FA Cup. They're all the games we're kind of talking about today. Elsewhere in the FA Cup, very quickly, let's go through. Bristol City beat West Brom 3-0. Southampton are through 2-1 against Blackpool. Charlie Patino scored for Blackpool. Love that guy. There's a lot of draws. God, there's a lot of replays that teams do not want those replays. Tottenham went 3-0 against Preston. Son absolutely balling out there from what I did see before I turned over. And Stoke City beat Stevenage 3-1, and West Ham have just beaten Derby County 2-0, goals from Jordan Bowen and Mikel Antonio, who is apparently bound for Nottingham Forest, back to his old boyhood club. I would be sad to see him leave West Ham, but that would be incredible for the Tricky Trees. I think we now need to go to, it's time for the transfer nonsense. Now, what is going on in the world of transfers? Adam, we're going to start with you before I take us to Spal, because I can't forget about Spal.
We cannot forget about that. So while you've been speaking, I've been just keeping a quick look on Twitter to make sure I was on top of the news. So by the time this goes out as an episode tomorrow or today, whenever you're listening to this, then basically you will know these are probably all made permanent signings. But as we've been speaking on air, Rory, Spezia have clearly acted on our advice. They've gone out into the market and have signed a striker by the name of Ante Budimir from Osasuna on loan for the rest of the season. Hakim Ziyech is apparently on his way to PSG from Chelsea. That's confirmation there.
What?
Few movements at Spurs. So the Beatles look like Brian Hill is back at Sevilla permanently.
Of course he is. That was from the day
On
he
the
turned up in
cards.
London. From the day he turned up in London, I was like, that guy's going back to Seville within 3 years.
100%.
Like,
Yeah, it was never going to work with him under Conte.
Undoubtedly.
But as we talk about Conte signings, we spoke about on Thursday. So Pedro Pereira, who is at Sporting Lisbon, has now joined Spurs, apparently. In the other direction,
I thought they
Hector
relegated
Bellerin has just just for Sporting Lisbon. So he is the replacement.
Spurs, I was going to have a heart attack. Okay, at least he's got
So yeah,
Sporting,
you're
that's
sorted
fine.
there. We spoke about offline. Zaniolo looks like he's confirmed that Leeds now. So that's a done deal, which is incredible. A name from the World Cup. So Sander Asmun, who was obviously the Iranian striker, he is joining Marseille from Leverkusen.
That's a good signing. That is a good signing.
A few more to, and then I'll let you guys then talk about others. So Timu Bakayoko, who is at AC Milan, was due to go to Turkey. He turned down the opportunity. He's actually signing for Cremonese on loan, so that's been confirmed. Jed Spence
played a game in 5 years.
Yeah. Jed Spence, if we talk about Spurs, he is going to join Rennes on loan to the end of the season. And then the big one, Enzo Fernandez, obviously a big one from this window. He's on course to join Chelsea. So they are the current live speculation / signatures taking place right now.
Is anyone going to say anything to Todd Bowley? That's 600 million in a season.
That's incredible.
Like
it's more than I think
getting,
Abramovich has spent over his time at Chelsea.
Like, I fucking hated when Abramovich came into Chelsea and they just blew everyone out of the water and just bought everyone who had any sign of promise and just killed the league for years. They're doing it now, but they're doing it badly. They're still fucking 11th and they're spending £600 million. At some point, something has to be done about it. It's fucking annoying. Like, any club that's trying to be sensible and trying to be like, right, let's build a team and try and carefully pick our targets, just 200 million, fuck off, we want him. Like, FIFA have to do something.
I think there's a crumb of comfort for me that I saw today, which was brilliant. Imagine Chelsea trying to flog these players off in a year or two's time, because they are fucked. They are screwed with these high wages on players on long contracts.
Like
I cannot wait for basically a team of Winston Bogarts to just sit there and do nothing for the duration of their 20-year contracts or whatever it is. Beautiful.
Well, this is kind of like, and to the point where Chelsea aren't going to be in Europe next year. Even all these signings aren't going to get them back into Europe. Like, it's going to take Potter trying to manage that team together. Jesus Christ. But is this going to come back to them down the road in like 5 years' time, where they're like, financially we're fucked because we've just not made the money back, or we've just absolutely shafted ourselves? It does not feel like there's any plan at all. Like, Andy, what do you make of this? It seems so short-sighted, but also they're trying to be long-sighted because it's young players. Like, I can't get my head around it.
The only sort of logic that I can see, they have signed a lot of predominantly younger players who, in theory, could be a staple part of a squad, for 4, 5, 6 years. But they're going to have to be really, really fucking good to be able to survive in the Chelsea squad for years, because otherwise you're going to end up with a lot of players that in 2 or 3 years' time, they haven't performed to the level expected. The likes of Modric and the young lad they bought from PSV, they're really going to have to hope that those transfers come off.
It's a risky business.
I think they've already. I mean, some of the signings they made over the summer haven't quite turned out to be as smart. With Raheem Sterling, I think for the money that he cost and what he's put out, he's not been terrible. But for £56 million, you probably would maybe be expecting more to be perfectly honest. And he's been one of Chelsea's best players this season. Koulibaly, they spent a lot of money for someone who's 31 years old, and maybe if you got him a couple of seasons ago, it probably would have been an absolute quality signing. But for what I saw last season, he didn't have his best season at Napoli last
no.
year, and he certainly hasn't pulled up any trees. And their best defender's 38. It's
not that 38-year-old, the other 38-year-old.
João Felix. That was a strange deal. Could still work out very well for them. I think as much as it's fucking hilarious him getting sent off at his debut, he did look really fucking good.
He did look frightening.
You're looking at obviously going back to the Bellingham conversation we were having earlier, right? If Enzo Fernandez is worth £120 million, then I don't think Liverpool could afford what Dortmund would be saying he's worth.
No, he's not.
Exactly.
Fernandez isn't a player that I looked at the Argentina team and went, this guy is standing out to me. He's not like he was. I don't know. He was just in the team. It was a good team. He was in the team. He didn't really stand out to me as like, oh, this guy's going to have a huge move in him. This guy's going to be like, and for it to be, he's barely. I don't think he's even hit 50 appearances for Benfica yet.
No, he hasn't yet. No,
he's not played many games for him, and for them to just be like 120 million. Rui Costa must be absolutely pissing his sides in Lisbon at the minute. Just going, oh, there's my bonus sorted for the next 20 years. I honestly can't believe this deal is going through, and it's absolutely baffling. It's baffling, and it's going to fuck the market completely because, as I said, every price now is going to be, Bellingham now is 250 million. Deal with it because that guy was 120, and this guy's got England caps. He's won a German Cup. He's got over 100 appearances in the Bundesliga. When does it stop? Where does that price go? I just think fucking Todd Bowley coming into the Premier League is about the worst thing to happen since Abramovich coming into the Premier League. But before I get even angrier, just fucking winding me up, I want to very quickly talk about a nice story in Italy as De Rossi brings back his old teammate. We were talking about him on Thursday, right? Did we talk about Nainggolan on Thursday?
We were talking about more De Rossi, but certainly Nainggolan was a hell of a signing, to be fair.
Nainggolan has rocked up. I think it's in Perugia, Spal. I'd have to double check that. He's rocked up at Spal, and they're getting the old band back together. I cannot wait to see him tearing it up in Serie B now. Some of the players in Serie B this year. There's Fabregas down there at Como, in case you forget that.
He's part owner there as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's got some sort of project going on.
Yeah, they're about to get relegated. It's not going well. They've got Catrone up front. Remember him from Wolves and Fiorentina when everyone was excited about him? There's quite a few players down there in Serie B now, but Nainggolan back with De Rossi is exactly what you want to see. Just love that story. Love that story. Andy, any transfers that you're hoping are going to come through, you're keeping an eye on?
No, for Manchester United, absolutely nothing. I think, but to be fair, that's to be expected. I think you're seeing a lot of people on Twitter going, we need signings, we need signings, we need signings. And maybe, to an extent we do, but I think there needs to be a little bit of reality put into it. United spent an awful lot of money during the summer getting players that were very much needed. They weren't, scattergun signings. They were targeted and very much needed, but they came at a cost because every player, because when Manchester United become calling, the price goes up.
And you pay it,
And we pay it.
And you pay it.
So, and obviously fast forward to January in a situation where the club's up for sale. So there's absolutely no way that the owners are going to want to spend 30, 40, 50 million pounds on a signing. And I don't, looking at the financial results that the club was last aware of, there isn't actually that much money to go around. They've pretty much put the summer expense on the credit cards, and I think anything that they do have will be aimed for the summer, where they'll be looking at largely a central striker, or and a goalkeeper. But I think trying to predict what Manchester United will do this summer is pointless because we have new owners. There might be a completely different vision with a completely different approach to doing things. And from a personal supporter point of view, I'd be quite happy if we did absolutely nothing this window. And during the summer, we had a new ownership, new leadership model. That for me is more important than trying to get one or two panic signings through the door.
I think that's absolutely fair. Yeah, while the club is for sale, you're not going to sign anyone. That's just not how things work.
I think unless some funky loan deals comes up the arse end of nowhere, which maybe is a possibility because of the injury to Tielemans, but then I don't see who that figure is. I think some people have suggested Yuri Tielemans, but I don't see Leicester letting him go on loan, even if his contract's up.
He's out of contract though, right? So I think
he is. And
got opportunity.
I think that would be a potential opportunity, but I think they've left it too late in the window if they do want to pursue that, because Leicester would have to get a replacement. So yeah, I think apart from some youth players getting some loans, I think that'll be it, to be honest. So I won't be holding fire from that front.
Nice. Well, I am going to be glued to my phone tomorrow, praying that this Caicedo deal comes off, because it feels like Arsenal have very much put all their eggs in the Caicedo basket and not got a backup plan. You did tell me about the Jorginho links that were before this. I'm not completely against that, but I would prefer Caicedo. I do think 80 million is a bit mental, but hey, if Enzo Fernandez is 120, maybe we should have been playing 300. Before we go, we do need to very quickly say we've been talking about it, and it's finally time for it. There is news in the Premier League, and this just in. He is back. The Dyche Horn of Gondor has officially been blown, and just in time to take on Arsenal at home. Fantastic. Very quickly, how do we feel like Dyche is going to get on at Everton? Do they have a chance now? Adam, I'll go to you first, then Andy.
They have a hell of a better chance now that they've got someone that can organise the defence and probably get the best out of their players. Don't forget, he has played with lights of, or managed at least, Alex McNeil. He sounds like on the recent podcast that he's kind of chilled out. He's kind of switched off from football as well. So he's got a right mindset for this relegation fight. They have a hell of a chance. And I've seen a lot of Everton fans are speculating that tomorrow you might see like 5 signings through the door, which would be spectacular, because that's probably the amount of signings he's had during his career at Burnley as well, to be fair. If he does it in one
more
window.
than his entire Burnley budget in one day, trying to get bloody Salomon Rondon back through the door. Well, Andy, how do you see him getting on at Everton? I honestly know we're going to lose at Goodison Park now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to lose a sweaty 1-0 to a Tarkowski goal from the corner that you should have defended better. That's what's going to happen.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
And Jonathan Pickford's going to have the game of his life. But no, I think he's absolutely Everton's best chance of staying up. And I think also, if you're talking worst case scenario, if the financial situation at Everton is bad, so to the point where they can't get the players in, you know, if they went down, he's the sort of guy that could keep them back up, because he's proved he could do that with Burnley. They went up, they went down, they went back up again. I feel like with Dyche, he gets labelled as a bit of a footballing dinosaur, but there were times where Burnley did play good football, and to be honest, he was never backed even remotely at Burnley. I mean,
29 million a season he had to spend in the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't think the net spend was even that. I think I remember. So I think just before we left, there was about between sort of COVID, like 2019, and a couple of years of COVID. I think they spent £2 million on Jack Stevens rather, and did nothing else for about 2 years.
Phil Bardsley on a free transfer.
Yeah,
as well,
that was like the extent of their window. That was the kind of funds that he had available. And obviously, if the new Burnley owners came in, he obviously didn't see eye to eye with them. I think things got a bit stale. But I think he's got is when you listen to him in like the coach's voice, which is a popular,
good.
He's a very clever man. Thinks a lot about the game. Really good at the man management side of things as well. I remember listening to him a couple of years ago on the High Performance podcast, which, all right, as cheesy as that is, with Jake Humphries on there, he does come across really, really well. And I think he'll do a great job. I think he'll keep Everton up, or certainly give them a very good crack of doing it. And I think it'd be interesting to see, although Everton, comparatively speaking, if Everton have got no money, he's probably rubbing his hands thinking I've never had
Here
this
we go.
And
back again, like a comfy pair of shoes.
And I think
straight back in.
he's somebody who's going to come in to see Everton as a massive opportunity. Not like Ancelotti who's just bored looking for something to do for 18 months until Real Madrid picked up the phone. He was fucked off again. He doesn't operate on vibes like Martinez, and Silva, where they're just like all pretty attacking play with zero defense. He is exactly what Everton need at this time, and I can't think of anybody better to do that job in the situation that they're in.
The only thing that concerns me is that their other option was Bielsa, so they still clearly have no idea what they're doing. They still are going, okay, we've got two choices. Marcelo Bielsa, who now wants to coach the under-21s instead of the first team, and we've got Sean Dyche. It's the same thing. Like, it does still concern me that the board have
Imagine
no
that
idea
as a
what the
team,
fuck
though.
doing.
Bielsa as the under-21 manager, then Dyche as the first team.
This would be a hilarious sitcom.
They should have just played it, the classic odd couple. Put
Can you
them in a
imagine like
flat together.
I mean, imagine that as a management duo. They did like a dual management job, bit like in the old days. That would be
poor translator getting chewed out every 5 minutes.
Who would the translator before? I mean, that would be a Netflix documentary. That would be incredible.
We've missed an
opportunity.
opportunity.
Bielsa has like little buckets in the office to sit down on as well.
And Sean Dyche comes walking in the office and keeps tripping over fucking buckets all the time.
Move your fucking buckets.
I still mope out for 6 weeks. Oh, he tripped over a fucking bucket.
Brilliant. We missed an opportunity, but at least the pilot's written. The pilot is written, guys.
We're taking 50%, guys. Come on.
In production this year. Nice. Well, before we send you off, I just did very quickly because we said we're not going to ignore it. This week, we do have some Coppa Italia action, and it's at relatively normal times. So tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we have Roma taking on Cremonese, and we also have Fiorentina taking on Torino at 6 o'clock. And then on Thursday, we have Juventus against Lazio. That's in the Coppa Italia quarterfinals. So if you do fancy some calcio, it is there, and it's not a 3:30 kickoff on a Tuesday. So thank you, FIGC. You've done us a favor. Guys, do we need to say anything before we go?
I think that's it. We also have EFL Cup action as well. So Andy will be waiting for that aggregate score to be clawed back by Nottingham Forest, I'm sure. But that pretty much looks like a straightforward win for Man United's path to the final. Just a question of who they're going to face. Is it going to be Newcastle or Southampton?
We will be talking about it on Thursday when all will be decided. We will see you on Friday. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe down at the bottom here. Follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Follow us on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. And see you on Friday.
Ciao, ciao.
This is going to take ages. I've not even pressed the button yet. There we go. Bye, guys.